What the fuck happenings from this point of view in Mendham? Yeah, that's right. So quite a week. Lots of junk. Um, from you just can't get more serious to the drama frivolous kind of range. So which one to tackle first? Well, I guess the frivolous, the less important kind of nonsense. So, Fake Sagan, Paul's Ego, Brett Keane, The Amazing Atheist. These, I guess, are the players primarily. And really kind of bizarre. So I guess the most, could argue that Fake Sagan being crazy was the craziest part. But it turns out it's Paul's ego who's the surprise. Insanely kind of overreacting to some sort of, I don't know, infringement he felt upon him that Brett Keane would dare to put an image of him on a t-shirt with a caption that wasn't all that bad, nor was the image. And yet, Paul kind of way overreacted and started talking about Brett's fat-faced wife, which right there, you're just saying Paul's ego isn't smart enough to figure out that there's a lot of fat facing going on in his life. I don't know, kind of bizarre. Anyway, but yeah, it really is this huge, almost insane overreaction. It almost makes you want to put Paul's image on something, in some kind of derogatory way, just to see if you can provoke the response, because it's so bizarre. Yeah, so Paul's really feeling quite full of himself. I mean, as the cartoon character he now is, I guess he kind of feels the indestructibility of being in the radiation of the amazing atheist. He's somehow too big to fail, too fat to fail, something like that. And I suppose some of that's true. You can just get away with anything. Kind of like Google and this whole DMCA thing and the law and all that stuff has come up. So it is kind of interesting because the people who have the money now, it's the evildoers end up being the ones that end up with the money, which is unfortunate. Because it really would be if somebody actually has this, they have this whole defense fund, 15,000. Well, it's over that, probably $20,000 by now, which is big money. And you could do something with that. Now they're obviously not going to spend it on the lawsuits, so it's just the hopes and ambitions of their contributors will not be realized, as is always the case. But it's sort of interesting because they actually have the money to actually maybe file a lawsuit and make it mean something, in the sense that they, for free. Once you file a lawsuit, it's kind of free to add plaintiffs, defendants, I mean. And they should add Google as a defendant, because clearly Google is the one that screwed up the function of the DMCA by creating this unfair system where corporations don't have to go to court to protect their property, but individuals do have to go to court to protect their property. And that double standard in itself, I think, gives Tommy Sotomayor some sort of legal defense, in the sense that, I guess in his case, he should make Google a co-plaintiff and he should countersue and name Google as a respondent, because Google's the one that's basically created this, that's broken the DMCA as meaning anything, because it's given privileged characters a right not to have to defend their copyright. So none of the big corporations or none of the big YouTubers are required to take you to court to defend their copyright. Google does the courtroom for them and annihilates your right to ever claim fair use. I can't claim fair use against a popular YouTuber or any production company. And that's sort of absolute bullshit. The production companies that Google protects. So this would be a good time to kind of like force a judge to actually clean up the law. So that didn't have this duplicity in it. Because, Brett Keane has some arguments. Okay, so Brett Keane is basically saying, well, if you're going to play this game, then, I'll DMCA you and it can wipe out your channel. And there's not much you can do about it because Google's going to do what it does. And it's going to be hard for you to repair the damage that people can do. But then again, in court, it's going to be hard for them. There's a legal argument to be made where Brett Keane may be able to defend the fact that he didn't file a lawsuit and go through the trouble, because his defense is going to be, well, none of the other corporations are doing it, none of the big YouTube producers have to do it, so why should we have to do it? Why should the little producers have to go to court when none of the big producers have to? If they don't have to do it by the law, why should we have to do it by the law? And I think that's a valid argument. So it would be interesting if this went to court in the right way, but like I said, I don't know if it's going to do that. I don't know if it's going to get to a judge, and I don't know if there's going to be the right parties are going to be named in the case, and so I don't know if the judge is going to actually decide anything meaningful. But could be something that percolates out of this whole thing, but it's going to take so long that by that time everybody's going to be so exhausted with all the rhetoric back and forth that there's not going to be much point. I mean, the purpose will be lost. The function of, again, another effort to try to clarify things probably won't. But something's better than nothing, in the sense that at least there's a legal case and I don't have to fuck with it. So I'm glad at least I'm not the one that has to go through the harassment of doing it on a low budget and spend, like I said, 2 years I spent in court, more than that. It was just futile because the judges are dumber than the law. I mean, as dumb as the laws are in terms of how they're written, judges are ignorant of the law. They don't feel like reading them, and they don't know what the fuck's going on. And so it's really just, I mean, there's judges who just don't understand any of this at all, and they don't want to understand it. And they make decisions based on their ignorance. And it's just, they make the decision to basically say, I don't want to even bother with this. That's what they make the decision to do, is run away. Preposterous cowards in the courts. But anyway, that's a whole separate subject. So through this drama, though, you just found out that Paul's ego for a bully, I mean, he really has become just an internet bully, has an incredible thin skin. He's just a mockable pussy. And he's not going to last too long. If this is how he reacts when people fight back, he's not going to survive too long in this new role. Especially, it seems he has just become basically nothing more than a kind of a 16-year-old drug addict, and that's about it. Reefer madness and such. There's just no. He's become such a trivial, superficial kind of person, and which is fine. I guess he's doing some sort of. I think he thinks of himself as some sort of comic. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, just not the incredibly funny kind. So anyway, another thing I did observe, there was some kid who made some video. Kid, I don't know. It could be 20, but he still looks like he's 15. And it was just kind of funny because, he looked like a 15-year-old amazing atheist. Way overweight, way too nerdy. And you just say, this is TJ's audience. It's just a bunch of nerdy, closet, wannabe, internet, whatever you call internet people. Internet people. Internet people in the negative way, in that it is their social life, which it's never really. I mean, I've never really been a fan of social lives anyway, but certainly the social life on the internet is what the fuck, and I think that's sort of demonstrated in the fact that I've spent most of my time on the internet arguing, and and as soon as the argument turns into this personal shit, yeah, who has any patience for it? I mean, or even the conversation drifts into all this personal stuff, which is just, it always seems like just a pathetic waste of time, mental resource that I could devote to better purpose. Frankly, if I need some sort of emotional something or other, I'm better off watching a movie than talking to human beings, in most cases, just the way I am. So that's a different subject anyway. What people get out of the internet. But clearly there's a lot of people who are living this as their social life. And I've seen that with professional wrestling, especially poor ignorant people. They really gravitate to this as their world, and it's, it's real to them, and it's just very funny to see how pathetic human beings can be. So anyway, that's, I don't know if there's much else to say on that. I mean, there's no point in getting all the technical arguments and blah, 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 because people don't listen or pay attention anyway. So the hell with it. So yeah, I've kind of, Paul's ego wasn't the human being I thought he was, clearly. And, it's, I'm sure he's, he's quite unimpressed or disinterested in my disappointment. Could even call it that. And Fake Sagan, is just likewise is such a hypocrite in terms of his sensibilities and his display openly of his bizarrely erratic psychology, and even elements of his psychology that you're just saying, wow, he actually made a video, did that? I mean, actually posted that, he actually did, and you're saying, why would you emphasize elements of your character that are just really shitty and almost embrace them by saying, I can't change this, and this won't never change, and everything else changes, but his inability to not punch things in the face can't be changed. But everything else about him can be, which is, so ironic. He can go from atheist to Christian, but, he can make dramatic changes, but can't change that. And, that's kind of funny, as a circumstance. But then, they're just doing videos about, had this, whatever, he's an extra, on movies. And he talks like he worked with, I worked with De Niro and Stallone, and, like he, it's just kind of, it's like somebody who's picking up garbage on a construction site, talking about how he builds houses. It's just, it's kind of silly. Kind of mockably silly. But it's just as a display of, his, I gotta have something, ego points, that these guys just clinging to. Accomplishment points, even, you want to call them that. Something like that. Defend your life kind of thing. Anyway, so, I did make video, some more commentary on the whole Jesus freak thing, and I am surprised about how few people will acknowledge, that it's just fundamentally wrong for people to solicit money on the internet with the assumption that they need the money when they don't. I mean, that's how bad the world has gotten, is that people find this acceptable now, that you don't really have to be poor. You can just solicit money for any cause, and people will feel like they came to the rescue, when all they did was let the richer person take their money from the poorer person. Because, we know the poorer people are the ones who are going to have the empathy. Because they felt the pressure. They know what it's like, to have something happen and you can't take care of it, and it's beyond your means. And they just assume that that's the circumstance that exists, and it doesn't anymore. You can't trust any of these people, quite clearly, quite obviously, because they don't assert poverty. They don't feel any obligation to have to even do that. They just assert, oh, there's a cause. Look here. Look, my cat is hungry. Look at it. Here's a picture of him outside my house, hungry. Now, the fact that I got 654 cans of cat food in the house, and I have no problem feeding the cat will be fed right after I take the photo. He's going to get fed. But yeah, I should go solicit money, and not just plainly state what I intend to do, which is have you people pay to feed my cat. I don't own a cat. I just feed a homeless cat. So I would actually, again, have a good cause because it's not my cat. So it's just kind of funny that I can't even make an analogy to some aspect of my real life that parallels this, because there's no circumstances in which I'm so flush, that I could contrive this fake need. Except for hammers. Okay, so if I made a whatever it is, plea for help account somewhere, and stated how, gee, I'm just so desperate to have a hammer, because I have 30 hammers, so I obviously don't need a hammer. And solicited money for hammers, then I could be a fraud like the Amazing Atheist and these other people. I mean, this is a little bit offensive with this whole thing, because there's no accountability, right? They raise money for a legal defense fund, and there's no obligation for them to ever demonstrate that they actually spent the money for that purpose. And so it's like every other fundraising campaign, and the fact that this has already happened many times, and the contributors are perfectly satisfied that there's no not even a suggestion, not even a reasonable inference that the money will actually go to the cause. And yet they respond. And you're just saying, how did it get turned into this? But like I said, just kind of bizarre. It was almost like the guy who gave the most to Jesus freak, like $3,000. He said something about the American healthcare system, and there was no explanation in the explanation of the problem, explaining how the healthcare system in America failed Jesus freak's daughter. What may actually be the truth is that they chose not to have health insurance. That they actually paid the penalty not to have coverage, and so they weren't even trying to participate in American society or in the social infrastructure. So it's kind of ironic that he is providing the money as if the American healthcare system was the criminal here. And there's absolutely no evidence anywhere that the American healthcare system was the thing that said, we're not going to provide you this coverage. None whatsoever. So again, it's just all this deception. All these people are just so deceptive and so dishonest. And, and then speaking of that, you get into these philosophical conversations, and again, they're just so insanely dishonest. I mean, where you can't get people to concede the simple fact that there's a value difference. There's something important in the difference between, eating a cupcake and having a nail inserted into your eye. That what makes those two events different, and the biggest thing that's different about them isn't that the cupcake is got chocolate in it and your eye doesn't have any chocolate in it. That's not like the big difference. The big difference is one is comforting and pleasant, and one is horribly uncomforting, unpleasant, and damaging. And the cupcake could also be called damaging. It's junk food, but obviously not to any of the same proportions. And what is the proportion of? The proportion is obvious value. I'm just saying, just this argument alone, this isn't a complex thing at all. Every one of us experiences these sensations. I can't imagine how a sentient organism, say, fairly or rationally, every day I just flip coins about this kind of stuff. I couldn't care whether I get hit by a car or I find a $100 bill on the sidewalk. I couldn't, either way, whatever. It's all the same. I don't see any real value difference. It doesn't really make a difference. It's not important. It's not significant. Unlucky, lucky. No. Who cares? Nobody lives that. Um, you know, it's a 99.999% thing. The only time you don't care is when you're drunk or something. I mean, this is just the denial that is in these arguments, and you're just, what the hell is this shit? It's insane. So anyway, I want to argue. I won't do it in this video because I've already been making these arguments, but I have stated in the past, I'm just stunned because of all the problems in terms of arguing stuff. I mean, having to argue people out of their religion, and trying to advance their understanding of biology, and understanding their own psychology and how their psychology is gaming them and all of that kind of crap. I thought that is something you're expected to do. But I never thought I would have to explain to people that they're conscious and that their welfare is important. I just, that just surprises the fuck out of me. Amazes me that there are individuals that you have to argue with, and that there's apparently enough people supporting those individuals. I mean, Anaconda videos are fairly well rated, and just how is that possible? How can people keep endorsing this just total denial of the obligations of logic, and to be consistent and not contradict yourself and all? I mean, these are fundamental things to having any kind of hope at all for any kind of humans having any dignity. I mean, you can't, as soon as you start saying, it's okay to just blatantly contradict yourself, I mean, you just shoved your head up your ass so deep. I mean, it's, you're never going to recover. That image is, you're done. I mean, you're so stupid. So anyway, I guess there's not much to say about that, because it's already, there's so many, like I said, I've just expended so much energy in this insane argument that what makes the planet Earth interesting is that the beings on Earth, not so much that they can do addition and even some complex mathematics, not that they can write poetry, not that they can sing songs. I mean, what makes it mean something is the fact that they're feeling, that they're having experiences, and they can be harmed. If I take away the ability to harm the things on planet Earth, the life forms on planet Earth, and I take away your ability to turn the thumb screws, so to speak, it becomes so irrelevant. I mean, it just becomes a squeaky Chinese speaker or something. It's just like, yeah, who cares? Turn it off. It's just nothing. It's garbage. There's nothing to see here. There's nothing of real depth or dignity. The only thing that gives this thing any meaning is the fact that there is the agony and the ecstasy. That's it. The fact that we can realize a perception of beauty and a perception of tragedy. Whew. Anyway. So, what else? I don't think there's, there was some new guy, old fan, gave me a link, this guy called Cliff Tango, so I guess I'll leave a link below to one of his videos, and you can check out his channel and whatnot. I assume he doesn't like me, I'm just assuming. I just think he would have left a comment on a video somewhere, or done something if he didn't dislike my style or something. So yes, he's very different style-wise. It's they're little short monologues, just explaining the kind of arguments I've made about you don't get your child's consent to create them, that there's all kinds of danger, in the living process. So just little kind of empathetic narratives, sort of on that theme of the tragedy of this, the arrogance of the birthers. So I haven't seen anything that would indicate he's that this goes as deep as the entire planet Earth and the life forms on it and all that kind of stuff. So I don't think he's ethicist. But I'm not sure. I didn't watch all of his videos. And so maybe there's a bigger theme in there somewhere. But anyway, pleasant enough guy. I like him. Like his style. Um, and so there's something good. You know, we do have to find suitable replacements for the Inmendum. You know, it is kind of disgusting that you kind of have to do that in life. You know, you have to find somebody to fill your job. You know, you have to know that there's somebody somebody ready to do it. It's the only responsible way to act, right? Is to make sure that if you think you're doing something that's sort of necessary, that there's somebody to do it. You know, if you drop dead tomorrow. So you have to start thinking that way. You know, especially as you get older. It gets a little real. Oh, I guess the other character to talk about is Piero. You know, completely separate from the silly drama is the me and Piero's inability to communicate. And like I said, this has been off and on for the entire time I've known Piero, and you know, there's just no. You know, he's entitled to have a whatever you want to call this, a belligerence in fighting for his idealism. But I'm also entitled to be pragmatic and understand that these idealists, it's just like having the Democratic Party being, in my opinion, being ruined by inclusion of bad elements. So just as I find it obnoxious that Democrats would placate the capitalists, you know, I find it obnoxious that they would placate the silly, you know, spenders. You know, the ones who think everything should be free and everything should be socialized. So, you know, and he just happens to be on one of those ends where he has all these unrealistic expectations about what America can be. And again, he keeps advocating for them long before we're even close to a point where you say that it's time to put your line in the water, so to speak. I mean, it's just go back to the cart before the horse thing. He doesn't even have a plan to buy a horse. I mean, there's no horse in sight. There's just this cart, and he just keeps talking about all the places it's going to go. And he hasn't done anything to deal with the practical fact that you're going to have a horse to get it there. And so again, I see this as really corrosive to the future of progressive philosophy if it's just going to be full of these empty promises. It's kind of like that, whatever you call that documentary that got pretty famous, the resource economy guy. Because yeah, they do a really great job of just showing how religion and the banking system and all this stuff has just kind of fucked us all. And then they say the big answer is commune. You know, we'll just love each other and everything will be fine. You know, we'll just all drink and eat as much as we want, and we'll only voluntarily work. And you know, there's no chance in shit that that's ever going to work, because human beings are, if you give them the opportunity, yeah, they'll just eat at the trough and then take a nap. And you know, you really do have to have hard incentives in place sometimes if you're going to get anything close to a person's potential squeezed out of them. You have to squeeze some of this potential out. You can't just, you're not going to get it for free. You're not going to get it voluntarily, let me put it that way. And you will with certain human personalities, because you can just guilt them. You can just say something and then they'll feel guilty and they'll go out and do some more work and blah 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 blah, and you know, you just, you know, even imply that they're being a shirker, and you know, they'll go out and pick some more carrots or something. And I would certainly see myself as in that category. If I lived on a commune, it'd be pretty easy to guilt me into peak performance, you know, without any real hard pressure, because you know, I'm a guy who doesn't want to feel like I'm cheating. I mean, I don't want to be thought of as a cheater. What might be called the trigger of mine, if I had a trigger. is that, you know, that I somehow have an ulterior motive, or that I'm using somebody or gaming them or manipulating them. I really hate those kind of accusations, because it does take some work to be, you know, to actually have to do it yourself, in the sense of having integrity when no one's looking, kind of thing. It does take some work. And so whatever strides I have made in that way, I'm not saying I'm at all near exceptional. I'm just saying that whatever I have accomplished in that area, I don't want somebody gratuitously taking it away from me, you know, with simple accusations that force me to defend myself, because you can't defend what you haven't made. You know, what's done privately has to stay private, and so you really don't have the option of dragging that forward as evidence. So you have to create new evidence, in a sense, to defend yourself. And yeah, well, anyway, that's more just psychology shit, and I'm certainly not as my trigger is really rusty, and you know, it's got that like weird oily crud, like dried oil, and so it's kind of gunky and slow. So, you know, it takes some work to pull my triggers now. You know, especially after 10 years on YouTube, I'm just not as, I mean, I'm talking about the personal stuff. I'm certainly triggerable, you know, to the Nazis. You know, as soon as somebody starts doing their, you know, Heil meat eating, you know, Heil torture. As soon as they start doing that shit, yes, I'm going to be triggered, and I'll react in defense of this obscene, glib brutality. But I don't really react to as much to the personal shit anymore. And such. So anyway, I think that's probably enough. Snake Plisskenus, who, you know, yeah, I feel sorry for him, but I mean, a part of me just says, well, no, I mean, he had this reckless, glib attitude about life, and playing it kind of loose and sloppy. So in a sense, you know, you can't argue that he hasn't gotten anything but what he deserves, right? I mean, it's, you know, I don't know what this. This is kind of playing with fire kind of argument, or whatever you want to do. I mean, it's just, you know, sloppy, and the lack of care and logic even applied to running his life was clear, and so the fact that it turned to shit is, you know, well, it's, you know, that was sort of really easy writing to see on the wall. And he's, you know, again, the argument is he's a little too smart to pretend he didn't see it. So I don't know what to say, you know. It's, but yeah, you know, you feel bad because he is well underemployed, and you know, that grind can just, you know, grind the life out of you. So I don't want him to get, you know, he seems a durable character, so you know, his glibness will probably do him well for a while, but I think it can also drive him back to the bottle or the Adderall or whatever, you know, and that will do him no good. So yeah, I'm just pointing out that I'm, you know, that's a cause that needed the Jesus freak contributions. That's where the money really should have gone, is to some character like that, who, in spite of his past failures, I believe has potential, you know, to rise above his, well, see, I think he has the potential, but it's, I mean, I don't really have much evidence that he has the potential. I mean, you only think so because you think that people who are generally articulate and knowledgeable would be able to get the easy stuff, you know, the kind of obvious stuff. And, you know, he is one of these, you know, semi-nihilist slobs, and you're just saying, I just don't know how this, I don't know how your brain can have these two conflicting things, like information good, but don't use it. You know, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, so that's probably enough. I think that's all incredibly relevant, or even somewhat relevant, or whatever. So yeah, I have all my projects, and I haven't gotten back to my physics, which I really want to do, and just a lot of stuff in my real world life, and bullshit to have to deal with, and so, yeah, so, yeah, I'm working on it. That's it. Yeah, I'm working on it. So we'll see where things go. And yeah, and this week really went quick. So I'm surprised we're already here again at the end of the week. Got to do another one. And so I'll continue to do that. And such. And so forth and whatnot. Yeah. Until next time. And such.